Welcome back. Now to our first conversation. Well, we see a lot's going on in the energy sector globally, from shifting to cleaner energy, rising costs of energy usage amongst others. Back here, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited has announced that it is working with the African Export-Import Bank, that's the Frexim Bank, to raise a sum of $5 billion. Now, to get insights and possibilities with this investment and other matters in Nigeria's oil and gas sector, we have Dr. Ayodele Oni, energy partner at Bloomfield Law Practice. Great to have you on the program. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, so, looking at this investment, $5 billion, what do you think will be the impact, despite the ongoing deregulation of the Nigerian oil sector?
Okay, I think it would be an opportunity for the NNPC Limited to go out there and be competitive, like what you have with Start Oil, what you have with Petrobras, Aramco, and a number of national oil companies. It may also be useful when it comes to issues such as cash obligations, ability for the NNPC to fulfill its cash call obligation. What you previously had was a situation where everyone had a cash call obligation, and every now and then the NNPC would ask that its joint venture partners lent it money to be able to fulfill its obligation at that time. You understand? Or ask that it be carried so that at that point it will be able to fulfill its cash call obligation, because it had to always go cap in hand to the federal government. But that's changing. Some of the incidents of incorporation as a limited liability company means the NNPC can then borrow money as a company, and issues such as the federation account issues and a number of those reduce. You understand? And it can be more competitive. It can do a portfolio rationing and buy new assets. It can exploit some of these assets, expend cash on some of these assets to be able to even generate more money. They say you usually spend money to get more money.
To make money.
It should make the NNPC more competitive.
Yeah, but talking about spending money, a lot of dollars have been spent in the past. How do you expect this would make a difference? This particular investment.
Okay, I would explain to you how it would make a difference. Remember, in the past, when the NNPC spent money and generated revenue, that revenue went into the federation account, and then it meant that if NNPC needed more money, they had to go back to the federal government. And if you remember 2002, I think, where there was the Supreme Court decision, the AG Federation and AG of the state, I believe, line of cases. At that time, you had under the budget, you had the federal government, state, local, and you had cash call as a line item under the budget. But after that Supreme Court decision, cash calls were no longer a line item. After the federal, state, and local government had shared revenue, if NNPC needed money, NNPC had to go back capping and into the federal government, even despite the competing needs of the federal government. So it made it difficult for the NNPC to be able to expend enough money into exploration, development of its assets. You would always have to borrow money, usually at even high interest rates, or have other joint venture partners carry the NNPC. Now, I speak to joint venture arrangements because, of course, under the oil and gas regime in Nigeria, we've got production sharing contracts, we've got joint ventures, we've got a number of a few concessions too. You understand, an hybrid system. But majority of the hydrocarbons produced at the moment are under the joint venture arrangement. So by the time the NNPC does need to expend cash to develop assets, to be able to get more oil and all of that, you would have problems getting money from the federal government, because all of this revenue end up going to the federal government, and it cannot even reserve its own profit to be able to do more in terms of generating money, in terms of buying new assets, more useful assets, in terms of being competitive. So I think that's one thing that's going to be different. And the enactment of the Petroleum Industry Act, which requires which means that the NNPC has to or requires that the NNPC runs as a proper commercial entity, like any limited liability company. Of course, there are certain rules, like it has to reserve 20% of its profit or retain 20% of its profit. And that's very important because it then means that when the opportunity comes to buy assets, to compete, to buy more lucrative assets, it can then buy, sell, or go to the capital market or go to the money market to generate more money. Unlike a situation where there were several issues around the World Bank negative pledge and issues around legislation that hampered its powers because it was regarded as a corporation of the federal government or an agency of the federal government. Those laws would no longer, many of those laws would no longer hinder or hamper its ability to perform as it should be. Of course, the only challenge may be whether its owners, which will still be the federal government in Nigeria, reduce political interference. That's the only thing or only challenge you may have if that's not reduced.
Okay, so with this proposed investment there by Afrexim Bank, would you say the oil and gas sector is now becoming more attractive?
Well, I think for now it's a commitment. I'm not sure the cash is out yet. It's a commitment.
Yeah, it's not
and it could be, whether it's more attractive, it's not so much, okay, I'll speak to the attractiveness of the oil and gas industry. It's more about whether the investors think they can generate enough compared to, because oil and gas is international, compared to other places like Guyana, where you see a lot of activities, upstream activities now, is whether you think that apart from generating sufficiently, there's certainty. I would say more the PIA than even that loan make the oil and gas industry, particularly upstream, more attractive. Because every investor would rather bad laws for certainty than uncertainty. So for a long time, some of the risk capital that could have been invested was not invested because no one was certain as to what government was doing in relation to the Petroleum Industry Act. They weren't sure what the terms would be. But now we have a Petroleum Industry Act, and people are fairly certain that for a long time, you know what the legal and regulatory regime consists of. Unlike a situation where, people would rather, investors would rather bad laws that they can walk around than uncertainty of laws. So it's one, whether they can generate or monetize their assets. Two, whether there's certainty. And three, also, enforcement of their rights. International arbitration, is it available? So it's less of even that sort of money by the NNPC. And that's more for the NNPC anyway. It makes the NNPC more competitive, does not necessarily impact the attractiveness of the industry as a whole. Other issues such as certainty, ability to monetize your investment, ability to enforce your rights, ownership rights are more important. And issues around whether the government is one that is known to expropriate. If the government is not one that is known to expropriate, it can then make the upstream, particularly the oil and gas industry, generally more attractive. So I think those are the factors more than the cash to the NNPC.
Yes. And, getting investments in that sector is quite difficult, nowadays with IOCs divesting. Can we expect, more investments like this, like the one we have with Afrexim Bank coming?
Okay, yes. Okay, so I say that it's an opportunity for the juniors and independents as international oil corporations divest. It means that at some point, years back, indigenous production was about 9% of the entire production in Nigeria. But that has almost doubled now, if not up to 20, 22, 25%. Because in the past it was mostly IOCs. But the opportunity, one reason is that many of the IOCs are beginning to go clean energy. Many of them are beginning to say, you know what, let's reduce our exploitation of dirty oil. That's crude. And let's concentrate more on gas to an extent and mostly renewables. You see some of these companies that beginning to change their names from exploration and production companies to energy. You see, at the end of the day, they say, whatever energy, unlike XYZ Exploration and Production Limited, it becomes energy. So a number of them, because of that reason, are divesting, and then it means that there's opportunity for juniors and for independents. You are aware Shell is looking to divest some of its interests. And I know those companies that have been shortlisted, 4 or 5 of those companies that have been shortlisted, and I did advise on that process. My firm did advise on that process. So I understand that it's an opportunity for juniors, that's the truth, and indigenous exploration and production companies. So it's the issues around clean energy, net zero, decarbonization that's making some of these guys divest. But you need to be creative, like you did say. It's more difficult to get funding for particularly crude. You need to look at environmental issues, equator principles. You know, everyone's talking about ESG now. Those are critical points you need to take into consideration. And you need to be creative. What creative means the NNPC and a number of independents and juniors have used is forward sale arrangement with some form of hybrid and sweeteners in the mix. So you just need to be more creative to be able to get more money, to be able to get more investment, unlike what you had before, where you had plain vanilla financing. It's creativity, and it's ensuring that you meet the minimum internationally accepted environmental principles or standards. I think for natural gas, we continue to receive a lot of investment. It will be issues around crude, but both crude and natural gas are going to be with us for a long time. Even the EIA has said that. You know, even guys pushing for net zero have said that it's clear. See, crude prices are rising. You know, you've been wondering if everyone's looking to face it out. Why are crude prices rising? Why is gas price rising? And you know, recall Nigeria cooking gas prices doubled last year because of international issues around refining and all of those, and the challenges in Europe. You know, the cold weather, the challenges around COVID before people could get back to work. So I think hydrocarbons are going to be with us for a long time.
All right, and you know,
there'll be financing. Thank you.
Yeah, talking about, you know, cleaner energy, from your view, where are we, you know, with investment, you know, in cleaner energy right now? And do you think there are plans, you know, to mobilize such investment?
Okay, very good point. You know, our transition energy is gas. Nigeria is a gas province. I mean, you often hear that said. We are more of a gas province than an oil and gas country. Than an oil country. We have more gas. I think the last I checked, about 203 trillion cubic feet of gas is what we have. So our transition fuel is gas, and it's much cleaner and it's more thermal efficient than crude. So that's what government is doing. And you know, there's a lot of investment around that. There's a lot government is doing, like gas for vehicles, like at some point, and government have been advising on some of these, advising particularly private sector participants. There is the monetization of flare gas that government is working on. So that companies can go to flare points and take that gas and then use it for midstream and other activities. So the truth is that government is doing a lot with respect to policy and trying to implement those policies to ensure that we can monetize gas. More people can be involved in the gas sector. And a lot of emphasis was placed on gas in the Petroleum Industry Act, midstream and downstream gas. So I think we are going gradually, and you're ready. We have the Clean Energy Act and the commitment at COP26 by the current administration for net zero and all of that by 20.
About 2050.
No, ours is 60, I think.
Ours is 60, then, okay, yes, exactly.
Yes, 2060.
Okay. All right, we'll keep, you know, tracking our investments, going to that, because at some point we have to, you know, mobilize more into clean energy to save our planet. All right, Mr. Oni, thank you so much for coming on the program. Dr. Ayodele Oni, energy partner, Bloomfield Law Practice. It was great having you on this Monday morning.
Thank you very much for having me. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, after the break is earnings seasons. We'll drill down on some 2021 full-year results. That's in a moment. Just stay with us.